ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Ladies and gentlemen, they are going bonkers, ladies and gentlemen. They are going bonkers. They are beside themselves. They are beside themselves. They are beside themselves. Tisa tells, I had to make a video, ladies and gentlemen, because, you know, it's one thing to want something so bad that you hope for it, you wish for it, and you don't look at the facts. Ladies and gentlemen, Tisa tells is over there crying on her page. She's crying on her page right now. This is appalling, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to tell you why. For all of these weeks, Tisa tells was giving misinformation, according to what I gathered, in order to keep people in or to lure them in, and playing to a certain audience, if you will. Like I said, we all saw the facts, and for people to speak the facts and let the justice system play out the way that it should play out, the real people saw that. But Tisa tells is over there now calling Diddy a monster, calling Diddy, let tyranny reign, and using all of these other statements and things that is not true, ladies and gentlemen. All at the same time racking up money at Diddy's expense. It's so disingenuous. It really is. It really is so disingenuous. The fact of the matter is that you had two people in a relationship, and at one time you had Cassie Ventura, you had Jane Daphne Joy. 50 Cent has also spoken. Thank you. Tisa tells is over there crying. She's over there crying, still doing the same thing that she's always done, right? Basically saying that she's basically being a bully and trying to convince people that what she's saying is factual and true. Ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't. Tisa tells was not telling the truth as it was being. She was giving her opinion and negative speculative thinking in regards to what was actually going on, and bringing out this notebook and telling people to come on in, shut the door, I got something to tell you. And she really had nothing to say, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, if you go back over her lives and listen to the information that she was disseminating to the people who subscribe to her channel, ladies and gentlemen, right? If you look at the information that she was putting out there, most of the information was inaccurate. It was inaccurate information. And you can see that by what? By the jury's verdict. Like I said, that's why when a lot of the things that she was saying, and she had outed one of the people that was testifying. I believe it was Mia, if you will, right? I believe from Sean G's page that she had gotten trouble for that, right? And they tried to point it at Sean G, when it was, and Sean G actually put up a video of it actually being Tisa who was actually putting out that information, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, once again, Tisa tells is not right. Tisa tells was wrong. And sometimes you got to stand with being wrong about what you said, right? All of the things, Diddy is this and Diddy is that. And, it was one video that I did a while ago when the situation kind of first went off, and she was talking about things that she really didn't even know about, acting as if she had sources that she could never verify, right? And so I get the dynamic in which her approach, but let me tell you here today, Tisa tells and everything that she told was wrong in regards to this Diddy case. Simple. Now she's trying to change the narrative and ride this, I was mutual. I was unbiased. No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. We can't let Tisa Tells do that. Like I said, once again, she did not report accurately as to what was going on in the courtroom. That's the reason why she had her little notepad when she would come out there. She would formulate her own narratives. And like I said, once again, that is a disservice to the people who are looking to hear the truth and the facts, no matter where they might fall. In favor of Diddy and not in Diddy's favor. Today, we've seen justice handed down. And it's like when people don't get what they want, right? Now they start crying. She's over there crying now. Daphne Joy, a.k.a. Jane, is still having her rent paid as we speak. As Tisa Tells continues to give this misinformation, she's still having her rent paid by Sean P. Diddy Combs, ladies and gentlemen. She's not a victim. She's winning. She's winning. Cassie, on the other hand, we don't know the full detail as of what it is. The guy, Roger Bond, basically went online and talked about how Cassie and Diddy would fight. Diddy was wrong for putting his hands on Cassie. He said that. They owned up to the domestic violence when Ignafalo did his final closing arguments. Ignafalo basically owned it. Said, Your Honor, if we were here, or told to the jury, if we were here for domestic violence, right, then Sean P. Diddy Combs would plead guilty. We get that, right? But Tisa Tells, in her roundabout manipulative way, right? And this is the crazy part about our society. When somebody can get behind the camera and speak these things with this false character, if you will, once again, and know that she's doing it, and then when she's found out to be wrong, she'll cry and say, you know what? I feel this is not about anybody that was sexually abused. This is not about that. This is about people who were in a relationship who chose to consensually be involved. This is what the jury heard, ladies and gentlemen. This is not about what somebody can formulate to tell you about something, about how they feel. This is not about anybody's feelings. It never was. Now, you can express your feelings, but I'll say it once again, like I said in the beginning. You have a right to your feelings, but your feelings don't make you right. You understand what I'm saying? So Tisa Tells now crying and feeling some kind of way about justice being served. Not as she thought it should be served, but as the jury took in the information, processed the information based on both sides giving their best shot at the evidence, at their arguments and all of that. And the jury came to a decision today that some people may disagree with. And a lot of times the undertone of what's going on has nothing to do with the actual facts of the matter or what's being presented, ladies and gentlemen, right? It has nothing to do with that. You know what it has to do with? People's feelings, their jealousy, their envy, their hate, right? Like I said, Diddy owned up to what he did. But Tisa Tells continues to go online, and this is very dangerous. Like I said, it does nothing for women who have actually suffered, like I said once again. Then you have these other lawsuits, right? That Tisa Tells was these civil lawsuits that have been filed that Tisa Tells was out here championing. Remember when the case came up about Jay-Z, Diddy, and all of those things? I told y'all in the beginning. I told you in the beginning, the people in the chat who know and understand when I said, look, man, When they dropped that case, when Tony Busby was forced to drop that case against Diddy and Jay-Z, my eyes were open. I was like, oh, wow. Hold on. They just went on television and told us. Then they had Ariel Mitchell and her client go on News Nation. I showed you guys the lawsuit. Diddy is now suing them for $50 million. It's on and popping. So for people who were thinking about the $20 million that he gave Cassie, right? Somehow was some kind of loss. Oh, he's suing News Nation and Ariel Mitchell and Courtney Burgess for $50 million, ladies and gentlemen. And you best believe there are other lawsuits coming. So Diddy might be made whole for the money he spent on his attorneys, for the money that he gave to Cassie, and the $10,000 a month that he was still paying for Jane and paying her rent. Right? Like I said, I wouldn't, and I would in some ways call it a malicious prosecution, if you will. Jack Johnson, the situation in dealing with Jack Johnson as far as the Mann Act when he was dating a white woman, right? It wasn't the Mann Act that Jack Johnson was convicted of. He was convicted of dating a white woman. That's what that was about. That was the racial undertones of what that was back in the day. That's why Jack Johnson ran. Right? He ran because of that, right? So when we understand what that was, that's all Diddy got convicted of, was the Mann Act, basically. There's no current law or precedents or jurisprudence, right, that would make it possible for the judge to deny Diddy bail and getting out until his sentencing. And in fact, like I said, we were sold this violence and all of this mystique and mysticism before it even went to trial. People were saying what? Diddy, man, Diddy, he about to get life. Diddy done. It's right? They were lying. They didn't know what they were talking about. They wanted to sensationalize this situation. They wanted to sensationalize it so that you would view and watch what they were saying, right? So now Tisa Tells is over on her page crying. She's smearing her makeup. Yes, Tisa Tells. Over there still, collecting money, you know what I mean, at Diddy's expense, right? And not being totally honest about what was going on the entire time in the courtroom, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody bringing me a notepad telling me that they taking notes, I'm leery. Because I need the information firsthand. That's all I was trying to do. I was just, look, this is what's going on in the courtroom. We were able to sit back and see it, able to make an informed decision on how we felt as people who were just watching and viewing it, gavel to gavel coverage every day. But yet Tisa Tells would come out and get online each and every day and not be honest about what was going on, and yet collect money at Diddy's behest. I get it. I understand the game. I understand it. Like I said, more importantly, the lack of honesty, the lack of candor. You talk about the jury being dismissed for lack of candor, right? Tisa Tells comes on and it's like, and you sit there and you think, you got to sit there and think to yourself, it's like, well, what is she seeing? And we sitting here watching it and we going gavel to gavel. When she comes out, what is she saying? And now that the verdict has been handed down, now Diddy has, the tyranny and all of this other stuff. Tyranny at still paying Jane's rent at $10,000 a month. Tyranny, really? What do you mean, right? And so the facts don't live with Tisa Tells, and Tisa Tells doesn't live with the facts. So it's just sensationalism and sensationalism. And you got people in her comments talking about, keep up the good work. Love you, Tisa. You know what I mean? oh, you bad boy in 5, and we stand with you, Tisa. Justice for the victims. They weren't victims. They were consensual, according to the jury, right? According to the jury, they were consenting adults. They were consenting adults in a relationship. Cassie in a relationship with Diddy for 11 years. She left when she got ready. And she left not only when she got ready, but she left with Diddy's trainer that he introduced her to. Had a relationship with Kid Cudi behind Diddy's back. All of these things came out in court. And the cognitive dissonance that people display when things don't go their way is appalling. It's crazy. Whether Diddy got 20 years or 2 days, it wouldn't have mattered to me. I just wanted to cover the information and the truths and the facts as it stood. You don't benefit intelligently or any way substantively with somebody saying something to you that's not true. Because now you go on spilling misinformation, and then they go on spilling half-assed truths, which then turn into lies. Now Tisa Tells is crying. She's mad. She's upset. Why? This is not about her. She's not advocating for any victims. We heard Jane get up on the stand and said, you know what? I want to go on trips with you. You know, how come I can't go? When in fact, in the beginning of the relationship, Jane knew her friend was dating Diddy and then started to date Diddy behind her friend's back. All of a sudden, Jane's a victim? No. And this is not, you know, you got real victims out here and people who have really suffered real trauma. You know what I mean? Things that they didn't sign up for, being held against their will, and all of the other things that we possibly can sit here and name thing after thing after thing after thing. Right? Tisa Tells does not advocate for those people. She's not an advocate for those people. Tisa Tells is an advocate for Tisa Tells. And she ain't been telling us, or you guys, should I say, like I said, I once I was on it, I was like, oh, wow, she just out here just saying anything and people just sucking this information up. You are what you eat, but you also are the information that you take in and digest. Just like I said, with the case with, and I just go back to that first case. The situation when it all started to come out. The first case with Diddy and Jay-Z. Everybody said, and I noticed that when it came out that the case was being dropped, everybody said, oh man, look at this. I'm like, and I started to point out, I'm like, hold on. This party right here was an MTV what? Then you can see pictures of Jennifer Lopez and Diddy together. This is the time that they were together. The party that they allege happened at this mansion or somewhere that this young girl said that she was at. All of it, ladies and gentlemen, was lies. None of it happened. The case that was conjured up in regards to P. Diddy and Jay-Z was 155% fabricated. None of it happened. The whole story was false. I need you to take that into consideration. Pause for a minute. Take that into consideration. Now, with that situation being what that was and coming about as Diddy was sitting in jail, right? They brung an 11-year-old Caucasian female and said that Diddy and Jay-Z R-worded her, ladies and gentlemen. Tisa Tells went online, did not do any research, didn't care about the research. All she cared about was being salacious, being this shock jock thing that she does, and kept on reporting the untruth when one is supposed to try to report the accurate story behind what's going on. Once it was dismissed, Tisa kept going on and on and on about how, but that's not the end, y'all. That's not the end. What was she hoping to happen? The situation involving the studio situation where the young man was shot, right? She went in on that, telling false and misleading information. I did a video about it. That's why I had to do this video. When I glanced her channel came up and I seen her over there. A Scorpio Girl 07 says Tisa Tells is a liar. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And very manipulative in the way that she does what she does. And like I said, once again, the misinformation is crazy. And so now Diddy got off based on juries of what we consider his peers. The black jury was, even when the black juror was released, Tisa Tells us, oh my God, the black juror was released. So he wasn't honest. It wasn't this. It wasn't all of that, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't all of that, right? And as we delve deeper into it, the guy still, his license, all of those things were in New York, but he just said that he stayed in New Jersey sometimes, as if that were illegal. So the government got what they wanted. They also got the black juror dismissed. Did Tisa tell the truth about that? Did she give you the accurate information in regards to that? No. So when one understands what just happened today, this verdict, for all of the bad things that they wanted to happen, Tisa Tells wanted to happen, it just didn't happen. And now she's over there crying on her page, saying Diddy is a tyrant. He goes around, delivering tyranny to people, right? Because it didn't go the way that she had told the people that were listening to her. It didn't go the way she thought it would go. So now it's these crocodile tears, and as if she's advocating for somebody. Jane doesn't need an advocate. Jane getting $10,000 a month paid for her rent right now. Cassie doesn't need an advocate. Cassie got $20 million. Like I said that Diddy was wrong for the domestic violence. During the closing arguments, Diddy's lawyer basically said, look, the domestic violence, we own up to that. If it was domestic violence that my client was charged for, that he would plead guilty to it right now. That's what Mark Agnofalo said. So they copped to that. But listen, you got to look on the other side of it. Another thing that people weren't, because there's always two sides. Another thing people weren't, Tisa Tells didn't tell you, that Diddy now can sue Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, the guy that he signed the NDA and Diddy gave him the bribery. It wasn't bribery, ladies and gentlemen. I sat there and I told you that it wasn't bribery when you understand California law, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Agnofalo explained it. And when I forgot who who asked him, it was Mr. Parker. Parker asked about the Rule 29 motion, right? Now we see how well the Rule 29 motion played and went into effect. What you saw was great lawyering. What you saw was the administration of justice on the highest level for some of the top lawyers in the country, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Steele, Mark Agnofalo, Tina Garagos, Westmoreland, Xavier Donaldson, right? These are top tier attorneys. Diddy didn't come to play. His life was on the line. No plea agreement. No, I don't want that. I'm good. Right? Because when you know your situation, like I said, you have other people trying to come and tell you. Now, these civil cases, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, a lot of these civil cases do not have any merit. Remember, Tony Busby went on and had a press conference once it, this Diddy situation started to snowball, right? He went on and he did a press conference. Once again, Tisa tells, jumped on that. Ooh, it's 100. They said they got no. In order to be able to accurately say, hold on, 100 people. Then you come to find out they were telling us, these parties. They told, it was these parties that people thought. Once again, listen to me and listen carefully. The Little Rod lawsuit. Did you see that Little Rod, Blackburn, his attorney, was just served by a Fat Joe and actually ran into the process server and was arrested for the assault of a process server? Once again, Tisa tells not telling you about that. But she told you about what Little Rod said in his lawsuit. I tried to explain to people why they went so hard at Diddy, the Cassie lawsuit. But listen, because most people didn't know. And they were like, what? Little Rod put in his lawsuit that Diddy allegedly told him that he had tapes of politicians, NBA basketball players, high-level music executives, and high-level people that attended these alleged freak-off parties, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, this is what he put in his lawsuit. Now, we heard from Brianna Bungling, right? One of the other people who was suing Diddy for $10 million. It's not going to work now. Mia also lawyered up, got her lawyer. That's not going to work now. You understand what I'm saying? And so what they were trying to do, they were trying to bolster their lawsuits by testifying and getting this immunity. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. At the end of the day, it didn't matter. Like I said. So when Bungling testified, she testified that she had the same lawyer as Little Rod, Tyrone Blackburn. And she testified that Tyrone Blackburn would put stuff in lawyer letters, sending them to Diddy that actually wasn't true. Now, don't you know that if Diddy did something like he settled Cassie's lawsuit, he settled the lawsuit based on the fact that he didn't want all of this information to come out because he knew that Cassie knew certain things about him, private things about him that he didn't want released to the public, right? The fact that he was a cuck, that he liked to watch his girl get hit by another dude, and that shit got him off, right? And that seems like from what we heard from the testimony, that was one of the only things that got him off, right? Ladies and gentlemen, listen. So when you go back and you look at the Little Rod lawsuit, you got to think about it and view that with a grain of salt now based on Bungling's testimony that she fired Tyrone Blackburn for putting stuff in lawyer letters that weren't true, like Diddy sexually assaulting her. Get it? So now, once that came out, it got a lot of attention. Little Rod's lawsuit got a lot of attention. Little Rod said he woke up, after they had a freak off, and I know what it was. Ladies and gentlemen, we know what the Little Rod lawsuit situation is now, right? He said he woke up in the room. It was two girls, him, Diddy, and they was all asleep. When he woke up next to it. I got it. Diddy, he was watching Little Rod hit the chick. Or two of the chicks or whatever the chicks was in his room. We get it now. We know what he liked. So Little Rod thought that he was participating in, I'm with Diddy. Me and Diddy hitting these chicks, like whatever. Not knowing that that's Diddy's thing to watch people do that. So we now know what Little Rod's situation is about. There was nothing. He included Cuba Gooding Jr., right? Come on. I know Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. is not that guy, man. He's not that guy. Like I said, Cuba Gooding Jr. has had his own accusation. That was dealing with a woman who said something about him touching her on the butt, something like that, right? We know that that's not who Cuba Gooding Jr. But you understand now, when Little Rod put it in his lawsuit, that he had got pictures of the two girls that was in the room with him that he woke up next to. And then he also claimed that he was drugged. Like I said, at this particular point, I'm taking everything with a grain of salt. ladies and gentlemen. You know, when you sit down and we talk about what this is and what this means, I'm taking everything right now with a grain of salt. Right? So when one understands what that is and what that means, you got to know now. Tony Busby got all these lawsuits. We know that 95% of that now is not true. Why do we know that? Because the victims that they were claiming to be victims, right? You had Mia testify. Don't you think that the government would have brung in these alleged victims if they were actually victims to have even more people testify as to these actions that Diddy? It wasn't that. It was Cassie. It was Gina. It was Daffy and Joy, right? You know, and like I said, when Little Rod filed his lawsuit, you know, we understand now. Listen, remember, Tyrone Blackburn sued Universal. He sued Lucian Grange. He sued Christina Karam. And check it out, Christina Karam stand tall, boy. Like Mark Agnafalo said, everybody needs a Christina Karam on their staff. Somebody who gonna hold it, keep their mouth shut, and stand 10 toes down. She got a job. Diddy owe her. Diddy owes that girl. So listen, the one, and we don't know if he had a relationship with Christina Karam, never came out. She was assistant. The person that he didn't have sex with stood taller than the people that he did. Let that be a reminder, right? Tisa didn't tell you about that. She started crying on camera while she collected money, playing to people's emotions and sympathies. I get it. I understand the game. But it's not a game when you're talking about real victims, in which she now is masquerading to advocate for, if you will. Simple. Tisa is mad. Diddy's going to walk free. There's no jurisprudence, no case law that says that he shouldn't be given bail. No RICO, no sex trafficking, no none of those things. And so now that we understand that, we accept that as being justice, right? Whether we like it or whether we don't like it. You know, but like I said, Sylvia Robinson says Tisa is a fraud. Right. See? Andrea says Tisa is a fraud and a disgrace. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what her personal feelings is about men or anything like that. But like I said, I do know the inaccuracy in which she was reporting this information that us on this channel was watching each and every day, gavel to gavel, whether it was boring or whether it was exciting. And so what she would come out there and tell people at the end of the day was so far from the truth and so far from really actually what happened, that she was so biased and against Diddy that it prevented her from being accurate and being truthful about what was really happening. And that is a fact. So now one has to go and say, hey, you know what? This is what it was. Or better yet, this is what it is. Whether we like it or don't like it. You know, so like I said, I had to come on and once I seen her, I'm like, was she crying? What's she crying for? Like, this is the victim and Diddy's a monster and da-da-da-da. She doesn't know Diddy personally. She probably never even met Diddy. So I understand her feelings, but I'm going to say it one more again. You have a right to your feelings, but your feelings don't make you right. The cognitive dissonance in everything. Like I just told you, Brianna said that Tyrone Blackburn was putting lies in her lawyer letters. Now you go back and you see the cases that Tyrone Blackburn has filed, even including the case against Fat Joe now. This is people targeting people, using the law to target people, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, if Jay-Z's case did not show you that Jay-Z Jay-Z told him. And that's one thing, like I said, once again, then you had people in the chat talking about, oh, y'all believe with these celebrities, y'all don't know what they be doing. Like, dude, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because you hate somebody because they became successful on their own terms, and because you think that you can down talk them, that's not going to bring you no success. It's about hard work and effort, right? At the end of the day, I don't care who you are. So if you have a bias or some kind of hate for somebody because they became successful, you need to take a look in the mirror and ask yourself how much work you actually need to do from that perspective. You get it? Like I said before, at the end of the day, when you think about the big picture, Tisa Tells is mad as hell. Diddy will walk free. The jury delivered a stunning verdict today based on the law and the facts and the information that was before them. They said, no, we don't want the government in our bedroom. They said, no, we don't want you in our personal relationships. They said, no, Diddy's not the only person in America that's filming his own porn videos. Ladies and gentlemen. Sylvia Robinson, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And not only that, but just being totally inaccurate, Sylvia. Just being totally inaccurate. You know what I mean? It's one thing to, have your feelings about certain things, but really explain yourself and articulate yourself in a way that says, hey, you know what? Even if I disagree with you, I understand where you're coming from. But it was hard to do that with Tisa. Like I said, back in the beginning, I was like, oh, wow. She just saying, I watched one of her videos a while ago. I was like, oh, wow, she is saying anything. Like, is this the anything being said party? And as this Diddy thing unfolded, I saw it. So much so that she cried crocodile tears today while people gave donations. I was like, oh, wow. She's really, they got her as some kind of, she's marching for no, she's not. No, she's not. She's not marching for any woman. She's not standing up for any kind of woman's situation from that perspective. That's just not what she's doing. She was out here bashing the whole time. And now she's mad and crying. Right? All the way to the bank. I get it. I understand it. But like I said, at the end of the day, justice was served. Justice was served. And I won't say that Diddy's legacy is intact now. I will say that he is exactly where he's supposed to be because it played out how it played out. And now he has to pick up the pieces and walk the walk of everybody knowing a little bit more about what happens in his bedroom or what he likes sexually, if you will. Like I said, but I could care less. You know what I mean? But yeah, now as we look at the Little Rod lawsuit, we can understand what was going on. I don't think Little Rod was sexually trafficked or nothing like that because it didn't involve that. First, it involved him being paid for publishing royalties and stuff like that. So we're gonna see what happens with a lot of these civil lawsuits. Just a week ago, Tony Busby filed another lawsuit by somebody said that Diddy told somebody, "I'm gonna give you some of that Diddy love," or whatever, man. A lot of this is about to go. Diddy about to fight now. He about to lawyer up, and you best believe he gonna have some of the best legal minds, and he ain't settling none of these cases. He's not gonna settle. If he didn't settle and take a plea, you can best believe that Diddy not gonna really be settling none of these cases. It won't be a situation where Cassie, before all of this stuff kicked off, now he's been kind of vindicated, if you will, of the most serious charges, if you will. You can best believe his lawyer's gonna put up a fight. You're gonna have to put up a shut up. You can't come in there with no whole bunch of hearsay. That's not gonna work. The judge not going for that. Them judges in the Southern District of New York, they are simply not going for it. And like I said, as much as people thought Aaron Submarinian was biased or whatever, I thought he did a good job towing the line to the best of his ability. You know what I mean? Not to seem unfair and impartial to the government, not to seem unfair and partial to Diddy. Like I said, once again, the judge can have his feelings, but his feelings doesn't make him right either. But like I said, the bigger picture is now, Once again, Tisa tells all of these other channels that were promoting all of this nonsense and garbage, right, has their day of reckoning. You know what it was, because now you see what it is, right? And now she's over there crying. Come in, shut the door. Ooh, I got something to tell you. No, she didn't. She ain't had nothing to tell you, because we was watching it gavel to gavel. And if you really wanted the truth, right, and not some sensationalized, watered down narrative of how Diddy was guilty and all of these other things. Like I said, Nancy Grace was with, her and Tisa Tells did some kind of thing together, you know what I mean? Because, I guess they shared mutual feelings. It's not about the hate of Diddy. The people that hated Diddy, like I said, if and you got to understand this, if it was that much of hate and Jane Daphne Joy was a victim, she wouldn't even take that $10,000 a month from Diddy to pay her rent that he was paying while he was actually still locked up. She wouldn't even take that money. She wouldn't want nothing to do with it. So how in the hell does somebody sit there and say, well, she's a victim? No, she's taking the $10,000 a month. She said that Diddy used the rent as leverage. How in the hell can he use rent as leverage and he was locked up in MDC for the last couple of months, right? Or for over almost a year now, right? Think about it. And this is, so you got to understand, this is people not wanting to actually see the truth of the matter and simply be told what they want to hear, or something that's more favorable to what they believe. You get it? If the man, they're saying that, Tisa Tells us saying, oh, the victims and no. A victim would not take money from somebody who victimized them while he's sitting in jail and she's getting her rent paid to the tune of $10,000 a month, ladies and gentlemen, while the person she says victimized him is sitting in jail. That person wouldn't want nothing from that person. She'd be so scared and petrified and traumatized and all of these other, all this tyranny stuff that Tisa Tells us talking about. Wouldn't she be feeling that? No. Jane wasn't feeling that. Daphne wasn't feeling that. Daphne was still living in the same neighborhood that she was living in, but prior to Diddy being locked up and taking that money right now and still paying her bills. He's paying her bills, period, point blank. This came out in court. Tisa Tells didn't tell you about that. It had to be this, ladies and gentlemen, what happened in court today? Oh my God, Diddy's going to jail. The attorneys, Diddy's attorneys, they're so this, they're so. No, it wasn't that, ladies and gentlemen. It was all a narrative that Tisa Tells was painting. And now she's mad, crying all the way to the bank because she told you stuff that wasn't true. And you seen, as well as I seen today, justice was handed down on justice's terms. Not on mine, not on yours. We can have our beliefs. We can have our feelings, right? But that does not, will not, and cannot make it right. We seen what happened today. So I needed to bring you guys this, man. Like I said, thanks, Spicy Hot, Stem Cell, and all of the people that come through to really hear what's really accurately going on. Like I said, I would never do that. I would feel bad if I did what Tisa Tells did. You know what I mean? It's like, what? To do that? To like come and like do all of this other stuff that's not true? Like, oh man, like really? Because even after you get the money, then you got to go home and you got to be yourself. And you got to know and then sit back and look back and think about what was just disseminated to you, knowing damn well it wasn't accurate. If you were following along with the case, if you were following along with what went on, let's like the brother with the podcast with Soul. He came at me, was like, yeah, Diddy, what you mean? The jury was laughing. They reported that the jury was laughing at Diddy's lawyers closing arguments, not laughing at them, right? You know what I mean? But laughing. That doesn't say it was laughing at him. Could have been laughing with him. Some of the things that he was saying, he was being sarcastic, and they were laughing with him. Like I said, some people in their interpretation of things, right? They want to interpret it from the perspective that they perceive things. Right? And it's not always the way you perceive it. Two things can be true at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. You know, they can be laughing, but it could be not laughing at what you think they're laughing at. You see? But so, you know, justice was served today, ladies and gentlemen. And you know, let me check on this. Let me check on this. And like I said, you know, the prosecution is even mad that they can't even argue. They don't even have a case of precedent to argue that Diddy cannot be released. The Jack Johnson thing is the only thing, only kind of precedent that they would have to stand on, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, and like I said, a lot of the media outlets are reporting that Diddy would be released. He gonna be released. You can't hold him. You really gonna hold him in jail till a sentencing. Like I said, after they sold us all of that. Remember when he was trying to get out, it was like, oh, he's a serial obstructor and all of that. Maybe if they would have let him out, they might have found him guilty. Right? See how things work. So in their haste to want it to be how they want it to be, if they would let him out on bail, it might have went their way. You just never know. But you never know what you never know, right? Yeah. Mount Messi, appreciate you. You know, you never know what you never know. So all of the and sometimes trying to do too much can be overkill. You know? So when we think about the big picture and what it stands for, we see it today. Justice was served. Tisa Tells is mad as hell. But guess what? When you out here giving out misinformation, telling people, you know, what you want to tell them because that's what you feel, and it's not based on the facts of what's going on in the courtroom every day. You know, yeah, she should be crying. She should be mad. She should be mad at herself for doing all that she did. And like I say, all of the insinuations that this, that, and the other, none of that's true. Those are just her feelings. And like I said, her feelings are relevant. Tisa Tells' feelings are relevant. But like I said, and I'm going to end it like this. Just because you have feelings, right? Right? Don't make you right. You have a right to express your feelings. But ladies and gentlemen, your feelings don't make you right. And with that right there, your boy DELRAY, straight gang.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to